Recording.
Hey, how are you, Chentao?
Hello. Hi. John.
Hey, hi.
Good luck, good luck, good luck, good luck. Come here.
We got the blues handle.
Okay.
She told me earlier because I kissed the cars.
Right, and then there was the
No
whole
big deal.
Amber's card, and Amber's cards get used. And
Yeah, that's fine. So do you want me to pre-order? Or just some ideas?
just, I can probably tell them, like, initially, let's have some of this and some of this, so that it's ready.
Okay, good. I'll do that. I texted Kirsten today
About what?
about last night.
Oh.
You watch?
Didn't sound like it.
I turned it off initially. Fascinating. I think, you know, what some people forget is she's in a lecture for it's a lot of time.
I do that.
Hmm?
Not from Excel.
Yeah. There was a fundraiser in our neighborhood last week. I didn't go because this job is a great excuse not to go.
Right.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I'm Republican. He's full. There's nothing to criticize. Hey.
That was just for you.
I know.
Well, he'll be, I imagine he'll be.
So many people.
Yeah.
So, you know, people are like, it's really low.
Well,
It's not swinging.
he's a Second Amendment guy. He's an astronaut.
Yeah.
His wife was shot.
Yeah.
Smart guy.
Mhm.
Sally's just blonde everywhere she's been. Funny, people just viscerally don't like her. She's just.
All right, Humphrey Fellows, section of probably Haw will be documenting this through photography. Just a reminder to, once we start, to keep your phones and your laptops closed.
Yeah.
Active listeners and participants.
What? Hi.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you, I'm happy.
Hi. Oh, hi, I'm Jan. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. These are my friends, Sue and Ginger.
Hi.
Sue.
And Jim?
Yeah.
Good name. That was my dad's name.
All right.
Welcome. Have a cookie, sign in, have a seat.
Okay.
And we're going to get started soon. So, I introduce you. I probably should go right to the remarks. Since I've been getting you guys to practice. And then I'm gonna, after you're done, and the questions and everything like that, then I'll come up.
Oh, no, I can only stay for a short amount of time. I actually have a
We're gonna
film
take questions
interview
now.
for my company profile, Voice
Okay.
of America.
And then what I'll
Yeah.
do is when we're like,
So I'm gonna stay and then I'll head out at some point. I just don't want to bother people by getting up, but thank you.
my way, what works, if conversation is still going on. Okay. Thank you. Hi.
Hi, my name is Chentao. I'm going to be live tweeting this event for John Genovese.
Oh, great.
He's part of ABC 15. I just wanted to make sure
Great.
that was okay.
Yeah, totally fine.
Awesome. Thank you so
Do
much.
you want me to give you some of our hashtags?
Of course, yes.
I was talking to
Plug
my,
this down. I'm just gonna.
Here, I'll write them down right here.
yesterday, and she was on the subway
There.
and so.
Hi.
It's like we handled the video and stuff.
So we are Cronkite
She walked above
Hubert
ground.
H. Okay.
Everybody had masks.
Yeah.
I've never seen,
So
a lot of people wear masks in Korea. I used to wear masks, but every single person.
In my country, it's the same situation.
Yep, you could do
In
those.
the meeting.
And actually, we're both.
everybody-
But actually, this is also ads.
So
That's a hashtag. And then.
I don't know.
hashtag.
Not saying, I'm not fully on board with that hysteria. but, yeah.
Welcome to Slide In. Have a cookie. Make yourself comfortable.
Good. How about you?
Oh, it was
What?
I don't know how many in the first day.
That's, today's,
Okay.
tricky.
I'm gonna go.
Email. so
Yeah, I'm gonna. Cabinet.
Yeah, talk about
Virus.
No.
Nice haircut.
Thank you. How are
When did
you?
get it cut?
This weekend.
Good.
Thank you.
I only need one more.
Thank you.
How's she going?
Okay. Good for you. You do it so quickly.
That's good, right?
Yeah, very good.
No, sitting around doing nothing. Hey, there you are. All right. Are you doing a presentation or just?
I'm just eating cookies.
Oh, those, oh, good. Drop those off.
Well played. That's my thing, they're on here.
Go on. Gotta go.
Sorry.
Yeah. And I checked it out, man. Everything is true.
Now, there's a technology that could be used for fact checking on screen.
Really? Really?
Yeah, it could do that. You could somehow.
Oh, that would be so wonderful.
They already contacted me.
Interesting.
Oh, good.
That was interesting.
Some Balkan, Balkan something is, not run away from the Balkan.
That they would.
It's a
Well,
little
Look at it this way.
I wouldn't put it
Yeah,
past
you
Trump
decide if
to
it
do
works
that.
on you, decide to do it, it'll look good. You can go back.
Yeah.
You work with a large.
So it's
Yeah.
a little bit,
Yeah.
I can see playing
Yeah.
interpretation of it.
I'm not early.
Yeah, I know.
So
You're early? Yes.
No,
No, you're on time. Early is on time.
Yeah, so yeah, we did the only thing in the.
Her,
Right.
her turning out the
Well, she didn't dominate the news cycle, but she's.
That's one page, she was on CNN for a while, yeah.
Man, this whole thing, it's mind boggling.
Yeah.
Settings and then what's going on.
Oh, yeah. Hey, learning. What? Learning.
I think the other interesting thing to find out. And the ad maker. Shadow. Well, thank God for our. Doesn't like checking analysis.
Hey, y'all.
Hi, Mónica.
Well,
We need pictures now.
Sorry.
Are you gonna be our photographer? You gonna be our photographer?
Yeah.
Don't sit away too far.
Sorry?
Don't sit away too far. How'd your meeting go? How did your meeting go?
Uh,
How are you?
Good, how are you doing?
Oh, good.
Oh.
How is it?
It's good. She's gonna come today. She wants to schedule a bridge date.
She wanted to hear it.
Hi, welcome. Sign in, have a cookie.
Thank you.
Make yourself comfortable.
But I'll just memorize everything you say and repeat it back to her.
Okay.
Okay, listen.
what's the trade?
Yeah.
Schema trade? all you focus.
Oh, she went. Yeah, she went to Breckenridge. And I'm leaving on Monday. I'm just going for a short time. So I'll make the next one, but I'm gonna make the two after that.
Oh, wait.
And we're gonna, she wants to have a taco party.
Mary.
Yeah.
Hi, so nice to meet you. Face to face. How do you feel? I saw that.
They have a big prize.
Yeah.
They have a big news.
No, I bought a ticket for so that it's here.
Hi, welcome.
Should we change it?
How are you?
We can drive, 'cause, you know, we're gonna go to something show like that. No, the one I'm talking to.
Make sure I can get a good picture.
So he's got it. Oh, what a great phone case.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, and welcome to Cronkite Global Conversations. I'm the program manager for the Hubert H. Humphrey program at ASU. My name is Jan Holland Malcolm. 13 Humphrey Fellowship programs in a wide variety of disciplines bring about 150 fellows to the U.S. to host universities each year under the auspices of the Department of State, Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs, and its partner IIE. The program builds lasting ties between U.S. citizens, their worldwide professional counterparts through independently designed programs unique to each university. At the Cronkite School, fellows pursue studies, receive leadership training, and forge professional affiliations in journalism and public relations with organizations in Arizona and across the nation. With this year's cohort, we have brought 102 fellows from 58 countries in 10 years to the Cronkite School and the greater Arizona community. Cronkite Global Initiatives seeks to see the world, to know the world, and to report the world. Cronkite Global Initiatives fosters meaningful connections among Cronkite students, staff and faculty, international media, professionals, scholars, and citizens. Cronkite Global Initiatives fulfills its mission by building bridges of understanding, mutual respect, and shared global engagement experiences. With that in mind, it is my pleasure to introduce to you this week's Global Conversation subject experts. Chentao from China, Noreen Shams from Pakistan, and Mónica Rivero from Cuba. All of them are accomplished journalists in their country, and we are delighted to have them here as part of the 10th cohort of the Hubert H. Humphrey program at Arizona State University with the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communications.
Hello everyone, thanks for being here with us to encourage us and to cheer for us. Before we present to you what are the situation of female empowerment in our countries, I would like to give you an overview of what empowerment means. Gender has been historically one of the most powerful bases on which social roles are assigned. Most of the time and most of the places, women have been the least benefited in that culture hierarchy. Although situation in general terms is dramatically different from centuries ago, we still live in a world where not every woman has equal opportunities just because she is a woman. That's what empowerment is about, providing women with the ability of gaining control over their own lives, self-power, self-reliance, and freedom. With that, I would like to invite my friend Chentao to come over and explain the situation of female empowerment in China.
Good day, everyone. Welcome here to share your time with us to talk about the empowerment of female. Yeah, I'm a man here, and they are the main characters. But I just want to share some information from China. So before our trip to China, and I just want to, so it works. I just want to show some female empowerment level all over the world. We find a report from the World Economic Forum, which is Global Gender Gap Report 2020. So from this report, we find the educational attainment, health, survival from female to male is similar. The gap is very little, less than 5%. But the economic participation and the political empowerment compared with female and male have a big gap. So that is the general view for our world. And next step is China. In China, I just want to start from our law, from our constitution. So in the Constitution of People's Republic of China, in the Article 48, it refers women in the People's Republic of China enjoy equal rights with men in all spheres of life, in political, economic, cultural, social, and family life. And the states will protect the rights and interests of women. Sounds good, huh? And besides the constitution, we have some other law just to focus on the rights and interests for women. And we also have the marriage law. And we also have, in China, we truly have the electoral law for the national and local Congress. So in that law, it says there should be an appropriate number of women deputies, and the proportion of women deputies shall be raised gradually. But what is the appropriate number of women? No one knows that. So that is from the law level. And compared with 70 years ago, before the Communist Party established the government now, female have some more rights in China. Now they have monogamy system, and the abortion is also a right, and women have the freedom of marriage. They can marry with a man who they loved each other, and women also can participate in various political and social affairs. And in law, we also have the right to vote, no matter men or women. So it looks nice, and let's see what will happen from the reports from World Economic Forum. we can see in their reports the economic participation and the educational attendance. This level, China's score is higher than the world level, and the health and the survivals is a little bit lower. And the political empowerment have the biggest gap from men and women compared with the China level and the world level. And there are some, we can say this one is the biggest gap. And there are also some sub-index from the report shows the legislators and the senior officials and managers, the female compared with male just have 20%, and the women in ministerial positions and to be the head group of our country less than 10%. So we can see the huge gap. And there are also some gap cannot covered by data in our cultures. In some suburban area, in some undeveloped area, there is a very bad things that when they have some formal banquets like brides or some festival brides, women cannot eat together with men. Women can just work in kitchen and eat in kitchen. And another thing is from the one-child policy. This policy is start from 1970s, and it's continued 65 years. This makes if you already have a child, if the mom pregnant again, maybe she have to face someone will force her to abortion her fetus. So that makes another big problem is that the unbalanced sex ratio at birth. In China, the distance is the biggest of the world because of the one-child policy. A lot of families, they prefer boys to girls. So when the mom pregnant, maybe sometimes they will go to the hospital to check if the fetus is a girl or boy. If it's a girl, maybe they will choose abortion it and to try it again. They just want to have a boy. So that makes we have a very high level, a very high difference. That means, for example, in 2005, nearly 20% more boys for birth than girls. So another pressure is in women with professional careers. If a woman pregnant, their boss will give her pressure, maybe reduce the salary or something, or force her to resign the job. Okay, if the woman said, okay, I don't want to be a mom, I want to chase a higher career, but she will maybe get the harass from their family and society. Yeah, when they get together, when the girl go home, their families, their moms or relatives always ask her, oh, it's better to find a boyfriend, it's better to marry, it's better to have babies. Yeah, but times and times, a lot of women in China experience this pressure from their family. So in recently 10 years, there are a group of feminists in China improved a lot. At the left picture is that they use some performance acts in public to oppose domestic violence, use these things to absorb the attention from public. And the right saying that there are 5 women, they want to advocate for more toilets in women's bathroom, and they plan to have an activity in front of the Tiananmen Square. But before that, they all caught by policemen. So they were faced a lot of pressure from the government and authorities. So some girls, some feminists transfer their place to the websites. They produce some video to satirize the scumbags, the bad boyfriends, bad husbands in their relationships, criticize the domestic violence, criticize the cheating. Some video is very hot, have millions viewers, but maybe they just can upload for several days and the authority will delete online. So the challenge, the biggest challenge I think the feminists faced in China is forbidden by authorities, because the authorities not just forbidden, you know, the feminism movement, they forbid every fight for rights in China for individuals and some groups. So besides that, in our society, there are some stereotypes of women. To be a woman, you should be kindness, goodness, empathetic, and you also sometimes need to hardworking to show your independence. And the society will give you a positive judgment. But you cannot, maybe you cannot too much independent, because if you are recognized you are feminists, there are some tags were pasted on you, just like aggressive, hypersensitive, troublemaker, hard to deal with. So in China, for feminists, if they want to recognize the status of feminists, they said it's just like LGBTQ people to coming out to know the public, to show their status for public. They will face a lot of pressures. So that's a lot of challenge in China. And yeah, finish the biggest communist country of the world. Let's transfer to my friend from Cuba, the only communist country in the Western Hemisphere.
Thank you. Good afternoon. While preparing this presentation, actually, it was curious for me because we were comparing the way our each of our country's constitution addressed the gender and the female. And for me, it was very interesting the fact that China graphic character for women has a part that represents children, right? Yeah. It's like the character you have to graphically identify a woman. It's graphically the children one. Mm-hmm. So that I found it like it was a strong message of how the woman identities merge with the maternity. And also in Pakistani constitution, the fact that they have a subtitle called Women and Children. So just a comment before I go into Cuba's issues. My country has 12 million inhabitants, and almost half of those are women. In the picture, there's a ballerina, which is, I want to say that arts and culture is one of the social aspects in which women in Cuba are more empowered. According to the Global Gender Gap report of 2018, Cuba was the 23rd out of 149 countries. In the 2020 report, we are 31 out of 153. United States holds the ranking 53, if any of you is curious about that, but still no any country has reached full gender parity until now. According to the Cuban Constitution approved by referendum in 2019, the word woman is mentioned in 3 articles. That's also a strong message because it's like the rest of the articles are addressed just to citizen and approach to the global population of Cuba as the men are the norm. It's like the default gender. So women as a minority are addressed these three times. regarding same rights, freedoms, and opportunities without any discrimination. In the list of on what ground the discrimination could be, it's interesting that it's very exhaustive and prolific in terms of gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, and then you don't find political opinion among those grounds for discrimination. So that will go under any other personal condition or circumstances, which is interesting according to the fact that we are a communist country and the difference in opinion is not allowed also for women. And the Constitution recognized the women's rights to enjoy the same public spaces and services establishments, and valorate the principle of equality by equal pay for equal work. Still, women share that problem with the men because we receive equal work, but the average salary in Cuba is $30 a month, so it's a problem for everybody. It would be just too much that women receive less than that just for being women. This article regards to equal rights and responsibility and also address the full social participation and sexual and reproductive rights. This is like a general frame in which the Constitution addressed to women rights and gender, but let's see what happens in the practice. This is a comparison between Cuba's data and the world, where you will see that Cuba has good statistics in comparison with the average numbers in the world, according to the gender gap report in 2020, which, by the way, they said that is narrower than before, the gap in general terms. Then when it comes to political power, over the half of the Cuban parliament is represented by women. We are the second country in the world regarding women participation in the parliament, and the parliament's vice president is also a woman. But then you have the political bureau of the Communist Party, which is the top management body of the party and is the highest political and ideological authority of the country. Out of 17 members, only have 4 women, and only 4 years ago, it was only 1 woman. Then our president, vice president, and prime minister are all men, historically. One of the most important things regarding women empowerment in Cuba was the creation in 1960 of the Cuban Women Federation. With these goals, among others. It was in the context of the Cuban Revolution of 1959 that was a breakdown into the previous moral and conservative society. So it was very revolutionary by the time regarding these goals, mostly focused on bringing women in public and political life. And for that, of course, their sexual and reproductive rights needed to be addressed because historically that was the main issue that prevented women from public participation. So as soon as, I'm sorry, I'll go back to this. 1965, the right to abort was to have an abortion was introduced in all the hospitals. It's not a law in Cuba, but it's an established policy since that year. And in the recent years, actually, the Catholic Church have got back some strength and some public influence. And you can see that there's a slightly shift in the public debate regarding this because people against choice is making public statements regarding their reject of this policy, but the vast majority of Cubans support that and practice that. So they also guarantee a maternity leave of 1 year paid if you work for the state, and provided women with child care centers like kindergartens and places where they could leave their children. But the thing is that since that existed and addressed so early all these issues that women had, it's like every time you try to bring the conversation to the fact that what are the current women issues or gender problems in Cuba, they say like the public, because this is a political official institute organization where every woman enters when she turns 14 years old automatically. So it's like we have an organization that already gathers all Cuban women and also already address everything that needs to be addressed regarding gender. So there's nothing to be taken care of out of that. So it's taken politically incorrect if you bring to the public debate something that have to do with a critic or you acknowledge any problem of Cuban women other than sexual reproductive right, which is not everything. Actually, we have a very strong problem of public harassment in the street. If you walk in Cuba in the city for 1 hour, at least 3 men will make any sexual comment to you. And that would be a lucky day. And I mean it. And then when it comes to political empowerment, you can see the huge gap regarding how many women are legislators, senior official managers, and in the ministerial positions. You will see the huge gap. And also we have never had a woman president, and we're not even close to that. Despite the fact that, for instance, in the process of reconciliation with the United States, it was interesting the fact that there were 2 women leading that process. Roberta Jacobson from the United States, she was from the Department of the State, and in Cuba I was the director of American issues of the Foreign Ministry of Affairs. So it was interesting that 2 women were leading such a complex negotiation. And it's a fact that everybody took into account. According to the Cuban National Report of Gender Equality in 2016, and I'm bringing this data just to show how women perceive themselves and how exposed they feel they are to what violence. You can see the numbers, and it's like over half said the violence against women was low. And it also has to do with the fact that in the public conversation in Cuba, it's a lot focused on gender violence is only feminicide. So there's not a very prolific conversation or debate regarding other ways of gender abuse or violence, like mostly psychological and other that are not physical or extreme. And then we have the fact that women do weekly 14 more hours of unpaid work than men. That's something you can also find in other countries, because around the world, that's the norm, that the fact that women are more in charge of children and elders. They're the ones that cook, that clean, that take care of reproducing the means of life of the rest of the family. And that's unpaid work. Actually, a lot of women that only work on that in Cuba are not statistically recognized as workers. It's like no worker population, and they are workers. Of course, they don't get paid for that. That's unpaid care work. In the private economy participation, which is the more profitable sector of our economy since 2011, with the opening of the opportunity of having some small businesses, only 32% of those participating are women. We don't know how many of them are business owners and how many are employees. We tend to think that they are the employees because it's what you see most. And of course, because women are poorer than men in our society, particularly if they are Black women. Actually, in the emerging feminist movement in Cuba, there's a group that address specifically Black women issues, because their agenda is different from white women. The challenges for feminism in Cuba is the fact that we have such a strong institutionalization. As I mentioned before, it's like everything is already taken care of, so you don't have anything to criticize or to solve, because it's already taken for granted that all women have their rights acknowledged and fulfilled. So every time in the press or independent media or any activist brings a topic regarding gender issues, they are the official power targets labels that as an extremism and hysterical approach, because it's like you already have a lot of things that other countries doesn't have, particularly being in Latin America and the Caribbean, where a lot of the feminist agenda is focused on having the right to have a choice, to abortion. And in Cuba, it's guaranteed almost 60 years ago. So it's like you already have for so many years what a lot of women are fighting for now. And it's like that if like that prevents you from having a public discussion. Yeah, the sexual and reproductive rights are already guaranteed, and there's a lack of public data, not only regarding gender issues, but every other issue. And that's the political incorrectness of bringing up anything that's problematic. It's also something that happened with the rest of the issues. Like it's not a particular thing against women. So we only had data of Cuban feminicide from 2016 that said it was 0.99 out of 100,000 women, which is low in comparison with other countries in the region, but still is a problem that needs to be addressed. And that's why a couple of months ago, 40 Cuban activists and feminists made this request of an integral law against gender violence in Cuba, and presented that to the parliament, which is something that rarely happens in Cuba. The fact that 40 people decide to organize themselves and sit down and write a concrete proposal regarding something related with human rights and civil society. So it was a brave thing to do in Cuba. And they got a response from the parliament, but when the schedule of legislation was released, this law is not programmed. So apparently it's not going to happen the next 2 years, but still it's a very powerful symptom of how the Cuban civil society is addressing these issues. I'm ready for your questions in the end of our presentation. I'm ready to introduce my fellow Noreen from Pakistan. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone, and thank you again for listening us. I'll be talking about Pakistan, female empowerment in Pakistan. Pakistan is the world's 5th most populous country and the 2nd largest in South Asia. Women make up 49% of the population, but only 22% of the workforce. Pakistan has adopted a number of international and national commitments to protect women's rights. Nevertheless, Pakistan's ranking for gender equality remains one of the lowest in the world. Women tend to be poorer, malnourished, illiterate, and have less access to property ownership, credit, training, and employment. The Constitution of Islamic Republic of Pakistan affirms elimination of discrimination on the basis of gender and encouraging participation of women in all walks of life. Under Article 51, 60 seats for women are reserved in the National Assembly, whereas 17 seats are set aside for women under Article 59 in the Senate of Pakistan. For West, we are Islamic conservative country, but we feel proud that way before America, in December 1988, Benazir Bhutto became the first female prime minister in the Muslim majority country, as well as the youngest elected leader in the Islamic world. While Benazir Bhutto was the first female to serve as Pakistan prime minister, she was not being able to increase women empowerment because the country remains a patriarchal society. Let's talk about some data. According to the latest data provided by the World Economic Forum, Pakistan ranks 3rd lowest in the world for gender equality. The nation ranks 151 out of 153 countries on the Global Gender Gap Index, only managing to surpass Iraq and Yemen. Yet, I feel proud and blessed to get this opportunity to meet you in person and talk about the same struggle that we face every day. Women with no identity, because men decide what women can do and can't do. Many rural women are not registered for their identity cards. A requirement not only to vote, but also to open a bank account and get a driver license. In Pakistan, many women in rural areas have not been able to do so because, according to the patriarchal customs and family pressures, they live in the privacy of their homes without legal identities. Yet, Pakistan's last election saw an increase of 3.8 billion newly registered women voters. That was a dramatic increase, but encouraging women to vote is only the beginning. The patriarchal conservative mainstream dismisses feminism as a Western idea, threat to our society. It will threatening traditional socialist structures. Those who advocate for equality between men and women in the heart of feminism are fighting an uphill battle. They face pushback from the state, religious institutions, and perhaps most jarringly from the other women. There are different kinds of activists among women in Pakistan. Pakistan is a very complex country with patriarchal custom, then religion, and then state. There are many pressure groups. So some feel we are secular feminists. Some feel we are conservative feminists. We are progressive women. And there are women like Malala who just want to go to school to study against the wishes of their community. But it's a big struggle to convince studying further mean that girl will sit among other men outside of their family, which will bring to the dishonorable to the family. The thing is, the debate whether we should be having this women right as a secular country, conservative country began when we fought war against Soviet, and it bring fundamentalist form of Islamic radical culture in Pakistan. Then there is a third group of women in Pakistan who do not connect with either secular feminism or conservative ideology. Women who are just trying to survive. From registering women voters to negotiate rights, women are redefining rules, despite resistance from states, religious institutions, and other women. I wanted to talk about this rise as a sign of victory because they are fighting for women inclusion and equality in Pakistan. With the help of international humanitarian organizations, women are doing unconventional job. The women are able to make money for themselves and their families by selling the vegetables they grow in local markets. There 2 years back, many women made a headlines in all media working as truck drivers in the small village of Sindh province where I live. While giving women greater economic opportunities is undoubtedly a crucial step in achieving female empowerment in Pakistan, other initiatives take a different approach. It is really heart-wrenching to know that about 1/5 of the world honor killing takes place in Pakistan. Just to give you the idea of honor killing, it's something that a member of the family does that bring shame and dishonor to the family. And that's why they should be killed. It's hard, it's really sad to understand what we go through, but I still believe women are already making enormous contribution to economies all over the world. Be it business, women, farming, taking business delegations, working as a journalist, or doctors, or armed personnel. So I want to tell all the women back in Pakistan or here in the world, chin up, shoulders back. Whether wear tunics, jeans, wear hijab or scarf, no matter old and young. Look around, hold eye, build a chain of togetherness, and work shoulder to shoulder and tell who will decide your fate, and shout myself. With that, I want to show you some Pakistani women who made history.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I would like to thank the honorable members of this House. Indeed, I would like to thank the House for once again reposing confidence in me. This is a great honor which they have bestowed, and conscious of the responsibilities and obligations, it will be the solemn duty of myself and the democratic government to live up to the expectations and the aspirations of the people of Pakistan.
There is a moment when you have to choose whether to be silent or to stand up.
They shot me on the left side of my head. They thought that the bullet would silence us. I am the same Malala. I am those 66 million girls who are deprived of education. I'm not a lone voice. I am many. And our voices are our most powerful weapons. One child, one teacher, one book, and one pen. They can change the world.
The name of Tifum Rawalpindi is Pakistan's first female truck driver. The 53-year-old single mother said, Sureen Abed is a Pakistani journalist, filmmaker, and activist. One of the most popular and high-profile filmmakers of the world, he is particularly known for her work in films that highlight the inequality with women. She is the recipient of several awards, including 2 Academy Awards, 6 Emmy Awards, and 1 Lux Tag Award. In 2012, the government of Pakistan honored her with Tamka Imtiaz, the second highest civilian honor of the country, and Time magazine named her one of the 100 most influential people in the world.
Rukhsana and Zakia, who are our main subjects of the film, whose resilience and bravery in the face of such adversity is admirable, and to all the women in Pakistan who are working for change, don't give up on your dreams. This is for you.
Thank you. We are happy to take your questions.
Yeah.
And if you're not sleeping, yeah.
I've got a question. So how do you explain how in such a patriarchal society a woman got elected prime minister?
I think the way I stressed upon Islamic conservative country, the answer lies in that. I mean, as a religion, we follow Islamic Sharia law in our country, and it gives you all equal rights to the men and women, and that's the reason why we have this women prime minister in 80s. But when we talk about the cultural practice and cultural custom patriarchal system, there is a man comes and said, okay, so this is not the religion it says because it doesn't favor them. So that's how it gets confused. But there is a law in Islam and there is a law in our country. And again, everything is in the law and everything in the constitution, but implementation is the lack that we require. And I think that's the thing we like. Yeah, I hope I justified that. Yep.
So Noreen, Malala's been such an inspiring figure, to the world. But has she ever returned to Pakistan?
She once returned in Pakistan in 2017. But again, she was not a popular figure in Pakistan because everybody thinks that she's an agent and she's working for the Western agenda. But again, these are the conspiracy theories that really shape up in Pakistan just because it threatened the idea of women to go to school, to go to have a political participation. So that's how they create this conspiracy theories, and people believe in that. And that's why she is still studying in Oxford. And we really hope that one day she might be possibly joining the politics and become Benazir Bhutto of Pakistan in the future.
Are there, for all of you three, when you came to the US in this program, what were some of the things that stood out to you from the way that women are portrayed, the way that we live here in America, that maybe shocked you? Or has nothing shocked you? I'm just interested to get your take on women empowerment in America.
Well, for me, it was weird to know that there's no full equal pay between men and women, that there's a gap. It was surprising. And there's something particular that it's a very symbolic scene, but it shocks me a bit. And it's the fact that women get the husband's last name when they got married. That's something shocking for me. Actually, in my country, when you have children, they get the father's last name first, which I find questionable. I think every family should decide what last name they want to go first, because it's a very symbolic thing. And here, to find that still women get married and get the family name of their husband feels a bit like a property thing. It's something that I'm very surprised, and it's like 2020, and I find it something really secular and anti to do. That's what I would say.
For me, I think the most important thing I feel shocked between the woman and men is I feel the woman, the girls in United States, they just looked more confident than in China. They freedom to speak, to do whatever they want. They can enjoy their life totally. And compared with my country, a lot of girls, even though they have their rights to choose the life they want, but they more concerned about the views from outside, from other people, from their families and the societies. So that is, I mean, I feel the most different things here, I feel.
For me, it's not a shocking, because we have always been known that how American culture is different from our countries. We are living in an Islamic patriarchal system, and definitely just to have a fun being a woman in Pakistan feels like, oh, you can't have fun. It's how could you have fun like that? So we really feel liberated here. We feel freedom, and first of all, that there is no pressure who to marry and what are the arranged marriages. That's a very common thing in Pakistan. So obviously, but the situation all over the world with the women, with the gender gap, with the equal pay or wages things, the war is everywhere is the same. So that's why I said that we are all struggling and facing the same struggle all together. So yeah, that's only the difference.
I'd like to add, because I thought later, in the aftermath of the Me Too movement, for me, it was also good to come from a place where that's not a discussion at all, and it's a very bad issue in my country. To come here and realize how is the awareness regarding that in the society and in every institution. Like, we got a conference about sexual harassment. So it was gratifying for me to see how the awareness and the standards regarding that have changed and are practiced here. I saw someone.
I was actually going to ask you, Monica. And by the way, I got married many years ago and kept my own name, and my kids took my husband's name. So it depends.
Yeah. I have my father's name.
Yeah. But I was wondering if recent breakdown in relations in Cuba, if you know whether it has had any further impact on the role of female empowerment in Cuba.
I think it has had an impact in
the U.S.
Yeah. I think it has had an impact in everyone's empowerment in Cuba. If you think about the fact that women has less opportunity, you will see that the impact is worse, and also that in every economic crisis in Cuba, the problems hit more the women population because they are poorer than the men. So right now we are going through a very strong crisis because the embargo is applied like never before. The only difference is that now we have embassies, but the strength of all these sanctions have had a very huge impact on Cuban families, and mostly women, because they are the ones in charge of that. And also, if you think about the political aspect of that, during the thaw with Raúl Castro and Obama administration, you could find that the historical enemy was no longer there. So there was no anymore that excuse or alibi to say that we cannot address any other thing. We need to focus on defend ourselves from the enemy, that it's only 90 miles away from us, ready to attack us, and bombing us with information, with sanctions. All of that narrative from the power was gone. So you had broader space in the public society, in the public life, to bring new things like new things to discussion. People were opening a lot of businesses. People were coming to the United States to bring back know-how, things like for their businesses, to provide them with resources, supplies, etc. And all of that is gone now, and we're back to the rhetoric of the hostility between the two countries, and we cannot focus on anything else. We are in a state of siege. So it's like this opening that we were experiencing is back to that close space of there's no freedom to make move, because we are in danger now again. So we need to be very careful. And anything that you say that goes against that can be taken as an enemy approach, like you're supporting the enemy, or you're talking about our problems while we wouldn't show that we are weak here and there. So it's, yes, it has very badly impacted everyone's empowerment, and particularly women in that point, from that point of view.
For us who wanted to travel there too.
Yeah, well, you still have 11 categories you may apply. Yeah, a lot of that has to do with bad propaganda. I mean, people just say like, yeah, they're cutting the flights to Cuba. They cut the most popular category that was people-to-people travels. And then, of course, that has that impact that nobody will go to study what are the actual options for them to go to Cuba, because it's like the purpose is that, like, people just avoid that.
So what was the proportion between men and women when you were studying universities? Because in my country and in some other countries that I know of, you have a really big number of women studying political sciences, law, like much more than men, and then they just disappear. In 10 years, we don't have them in politics, we don't have them in parliament, in the government, and there's a lot of reasons for that. So I want to know what's the proportion in your universities, in your education.
Okay. In China, it depends on what major is. Some major, they just limited the gender. They for example, if you want to go to a major like broadcast photographer, they just limited, maybe they need 40 students, and 30s are boys, just 10 chance for girls. So some specific major, they will set the limited. And for another thing, that in China, there is a situation that the higher the degree have the female, the more female will get the higher degree. So that shows maybe more than 60 or 70% degrees, the PhD degrees get of female, not men. So that is means for men, maybe they will have more opportunities before they get a higher degree. They have more choice. But for female, a lot of them just stay at university campus, go the academic way for their future. So that is another view to show, to see how the choice open to different genders in China.
Well, talking about Pakistan, I will say it is increasing for the past years, because first of all, it's a big thing that if a girl wants to study in a higher education and coming to the university, it has to challenge a lot of like family wishes, custom wishes, and then many families will say you don't need to get the higher degree, you need to get married and just get settled in your life. So, but still there are women, because of the economic challenges in our countries, we are trying to have like women more. So they are 65%, which is increasing. But again, that you were right, many people or many women just become a doctor, an engineer, but they get married and then just nothing happens. And it has no economic participation as a practitioner.
Well, in Cuba, a majority of the students are women, but you can see a lot of difference between whether it's humanity careers or technical careers. Humanities are mostly women. Actually, in my class, we were 38 and only 10 were men, and in the other group was only 3 men. and it was average number. But then you go to the technical university and it's like the opposite, 2 women in classes of 40 men. And then also practicing is like women face a bit of discrimination regarding that. Like they are taken less professional, less talented. Curiously, also in the cinema industry, women started really soon to study photography because it actually was something as ridiculous that they say that they couldn't carry the cameras. So still you find a few number of women that are photographers in the film industry, and they face a lot of uncomfortable situations because they work in men-controlled ambiances where women have been for a long time. So yeah, depends on what career we're talking about, but you can see the difference regarding that.
Time for one last question or comment? Anybody? Well, please help me thank our speakers. Okay. So before we leave, I'd like to thank you all for coming. If you didn't get a cookie, please have one on your way out. Also, please be sure to sign in on our guest list so we can count heads so we know who are here. And if you want to be emailed for future events from Cronkite Global Initiatives, we'll be sure to send you information. Next week, same room, same time, we're going to be having South Asia Sea conflict and the influence of China in Southeast Asia by 3 of our other fellows. So we hope that you will join us, and thank you very much for coming. See you.